Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jane. This is Jane by Design. You're welcome to a new video. Today I'll be showing us how to draft a cupped corset, an off-shoulder cupped corset with a Bask width line. If this is something you're interested in, please watch the video to the end, subscribe to the channel, and recommend the channel to your friends. For my new subscriber, thank you for joining us. And for the returning subscriber, thank you as well. It's been a while, and yeah, I missed all of you guys. So, my table here, I have an already drafted pattern from the shoulder to the hip line. I have a video on how to draft the full scale pattern. I'm going to be leaving that link in the description box. So if you've not seen it or you don't know how to draft the full scale bodies, I'll be leaving the link in the description box. So first, I'm going to move to the shoulder line. I'm going to be dividing my shoulder into two, and at the point where I have the midpoint of my shoulder, I'm going to connect it down to touch my bust line. So this new line that I've just marked here is to create a dart at the chest line. Now, this is a corset. This is an off-shoulder corset, and you want the corset sitting on your chest to be firm, okay? So that is why we have this new line running from the shoulder to the bust line. So you can also see I have my bust dart and the waist dart as well. Now that we have this line now, the next thing we are going to do is to determine how low we want this corset to sit on the chest or how high we want it to be. You can use your underbust radius if you want to, but I'm going to be using 2.5" for this. So from my bust line, I went up by 2.5". The bust radius is a distance from your bust to your underbust. That is what your bust radius is. Now from my bust line, I went up by 2.5", and I'm going to mark a line across. Now this new line is what I'm going to be using as my new chest line, and that is where I'm going to be placing my style line for the corset. Okay, so here after that, now I'm going to be taking a dart on this new chest line. Now I'm going to be taking 0.75" dart on both sides of this chest line. So this is so that the corset sits nicely on the chest, and like I said, it doesn't fall off when you make this pattern into a dress. All right, so here I've marked 0.75" on both sides, and then I'm going to use my curve ruler to connect both darts to touch the bust line. Right, so that's what I've done for the right and for the left side of the pattern. So after doing this, now the next thing we are going to do is to take the division that you have in between your corset. So I'm going to go up from my bust line by 1". Okay, from my bust line I'm going to come up by 1", and then I'm going to extend it inward by 1/2 inch. Please note that this pattern is going to be on fold, so when you open it up, it's going to be 1" separating the two breast cups of your corset. So I'm going up by 1", and then I'll extend it inward by 1/2 inch. After extending it inward by 1/2 inch, I'm going to just bring it down to touch my bust line. Okay, these lines are just guides so that we can be able to draw out a perfect corset cup. So after drawing out this corset, this line, we are going to now take our ruler to connect the dart at the chest line to touch this point we drew on the midpoint of our corset. Okay, so you can see that one side of the corset is coming out nicely. That's the top side. Now for us to be able to complete the cupped part of this corset, we are going to do an underbust tightening. So for the underbust tightening, I'm going to be dividing my underbust by 4. That is 30 divided by 4. I have 7.5". Then I place a mark right there, and then you can see that I have an excess of 1", and that 1" is what I'm going to be using to tighten the underbust. So how I'm going to do this is to divide that 1 inch by 2, that is 0.5 inch. So I'll be taking a dart of 0.5 inch on both sides, that's the outer side of my underbust. So you can see where I placed my tape. These are the places where I'll be putting those excesses on. So I've marked out those excesses. Now I'm going to also reconnect that now from the underbust to touch the waist, to touch the bust line. Okay, sorry. So I'm going to reconnect that now to touch the bust line. So this is what an underbust tightening is. So this is how it's going to, the curve of your boobs is going to come out nicely and well structured when you make this pattern. So here I've used my ruler now to connect the underbust to touch the bust line and also at the other side as well. So now you can now go ahead and complete that curve. Okay, you can now complete the curve you have at the center front of your pattern. So I just placed my ruler once more at that point. Then I'm going to be connecting, I'm going to be bringing down the line from my bust line to touch the underbust. So you can see at the moment that I have a curve running at the center front of my pattern. Now for us to complete the corset cup of the pattern, we need to bring down the dart legs of our pattern. All right, so from the underbust where we've taken a dart, we are going to just connect to touch the dart leg of the hip. So just take your ruler and bring down those dart legs. They cannot be hanging, so you need to bring them down to touch the dart legs of your hip line. So right here, that's what I've done. So automatically what that means is that all of those lines we have in between, all of those darts that we've taken in between the underbust and at the chest line, we are going to be cutting them all off. All right, so after we've brought this down, now I'm going to now make my side curve. Now to make my side curve, I'll be measuring what I have on my center front curve, and then I'm going to mark it on my bust line, and then I'm going to be adding extra 1/2 inch to it. That is because the side of the boob is much fuller compared to the center. All right, so now I've marked that, and then I extended it upwards with a straight line, and then I can now complete the top part of that corset. So I've just used my ruler to connect where I marked at the side to touch the top of my corset, that's to touch the chest line of my corset. So that way you see that we also have the other side of the corset coming through. So now for us to complete the curve of the side, we need to eliminate that side that you can see that this pattern has a side dart. Now side darts come into play when your boobs are quite larger and they kind of project you upwards. So you need the side dart to ensure that the back pattern and the front pattern kind of aligns properly. So for us to eliminate the side dart, we are going to slash open that midline we have on our shoulder. We are going to slash it from the top of the shoulder down to the bust line. Okay, so while we slash this now, it's going to give us room to be able to fold in our side dart. So this is what it would look like. I've slashed open my shoulder line, and then I'm going to gradually fold in the side dart. So you can see, because we slashed that line open, we are able to comfortably close off the side dart of our pattern. So we've just transferred the side dart to the shoulder. Okay, now after this, now I'm going to adjust the side so that we do not have any form of shortage running at that point. All right, so I'm just going to use my ruler, my curve, or whatever kind of ruler you have. Just go ahead and ensure that you readjust the side of your pattern so you don't have any form of shortage at the side when you are going to be transferring this pattern on your fabric. So now I've done that. Now I will move on to creating the remaining curve of my corset. So now what I will do is to just tape down that part. Okay, use my tape to tape it down. Then you can now go ahead and use your ruler to connect the cup at the side to touch the chest lines. You can notice that the top of my corset kind of runs through my armhole. So this will also depend on how you want your corset to be. So I'm just using my ruler now to connect the side cup to touch the armhole that I have marked where the corset will be stopping at. Now you see that the side of the corset is formed and the center front of the corset is formed. So because I want this to be a 3-piece, I'm going to come to the center front of the corset and I'm going to mark 1.5 inch. You can take 1 inch depending on whatever style line you're going for. So I'm going to be marking 1.5 inch on both sides of my corset pattern, and also towards the center front side I'm going to take 1 inch. Then I'll use my ruler to create a shape for the top of my corset. I'll do the same thing for the other side of the corset as well. I'm going to mark out 1 inch at the side of my corset. Then I'll use my ruler to connect these 2 points together on both sides of the corset. This is so that we have a 3-piece corset. But you can as well leave this like this. It's very okay. It's going to still work. So after that, now this is what I have. You can see that my 3-piece corset has come alive. Now what we'll do is to go ahead and create the bask. For the bask, I came in from the center front of my hip line by 2 inches, and from the waistline I came down by 1 inch or 1.5 inch thereabouts. So from that point now I'm going to be creating the triangular effect to the bask effect at the front of the pattern. So I'm going to be using my ruler to create that triangular shape that I want on the front. So this is how I've just done it. Just take your ruler and create a triangular shape. So that way we've created our bask. So what we'll do now is to go ahead and cut out the pattern. So please note that this pattern does not have a sewing allowance to it. So I'm going to be adding the sewing allowance when I transfer this pattern on my fabric. So right now I'm going to be cutting out the pattern. Please take note of how I am slashing open all of the darts, and please take note of how I am also going ahead to cut out the cups for my corset. Alright guys, so here it is after cutting out. Now we are going to move on to the back. Alright guys, so moving on to the back, I'm going to be using a full scale pattern because I want my beginners here to understand this drafting very well, correctly. Okay, so I have my full scale from the shoulder to the hip line of my back. You can see the pattern has a dart on it, and also if you look closely at the center back line, you can see that I have already taken a 0.5 inch dart at the waistline, just so that we can eliminate any bulginess that might occur at the back. Now for the back to align with the front panel, we need to come down from the waistline by 1.5 inch. Same thing we did for the front. We are going to be coming down by 1.5 inch from the side of our back panel, and what we do is to just use our straight ruler to connect a straight line to meet the center back of our pattern, and that is it for the back. Now if you want to add extra tightening to the back, you can go up at the chest line by 0.5 inch on both sides of your dart legs. Then you bring down the darts to touch your waistline, and that is it for the back. That way you have done a little bit of tightening for the back of your corset, but you can still leave it like that if you don't want to do this tightening. This is optional. This is so that you have a very nice fitting at the back. Now when you are done with that, the next thing you're going to do is to go ahead and cut out. You can see why I said that the back is the easiest of them all. So go ahead and cut out that line you marked beneath your waistline. You are also going to be cutting out your chest line as well. So what you need is the distance from your chest line to the point where you have 1.5 inch below your waistline. That is all you need. Also go ahead to cut out your darts as well. Okay, also at the center back, ensure that before you cut that open, ensure that you take out if you're going to be using a modesty panel or you're going to be using an eyelet, you can go ahead and measure out 1.5 inch from the chest line down to the waistline, so that you can give that spacing at the back. But if you're not going to be using an eyelet for this, you don't need to do this procedure. All you need to do is to cut out the bulge at the back, and then when you transfer this pattern onto your fabric, you just add your zipper allowance to it, and that's so. But for this, I'm going to be adding eyelets, so I'm going to be measuring. I decided to measure 1.5 inch away from the center back line, and I'm going to be cutting this out. So after cutting this out, that point is where I'm going to be placing out the eyelet. Okay, so you can just see how I am going about it. I'm cutting that out, and this is what it will look like. Please note that you should label your pattern, otherwise you might get confused. So I advise you, when you are done drafting, please label, so that when you transfer this, you know what part goes with what part. So that's what I've done here. I've labeled my parts: center front, center back, side front, side back, and all of those, so that it's easier for you to identify them when you come to work with them. All right, guys, this is what it looks like. This is what the front looks like. This is what the back looks like. I hope I'll be able to do a sewing tutorial of this. If you like this video, if this video has been helpful to you, please share, like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment in the comment section. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. See you in my next one. Bye.